Hey YouTube, it's Dimitri, and today we're going to talk about foundationless frames. So when I was new to beekeeping, I read some books. I decided I wanted to go foundationless. So for those of you that don't know, the frames themselves, a foundationless frame will look like this. But I was a little confused on what to buy online, so we'll talk about that. I'll show you how to assemble these really quick. But the only real difference between foundationless and foundation frames is that this one has nothing in the middle, so no foundation. So some people actually tie a wire between the frames, and there's little holes in the sides that you can do it with if you want. Makes it a little easier, I guess, for the bees. For me, it's too much work, so I just make these foundationless frames. But let's just dive on into making these and talking about the different parts. Okay, so for this project, you're only going to need a few things to do this. Tools-wise, you're going to need a hammer. You're going to need some larger paper clips, like binder clips here. You're going to need some wood glue. I use Titan Bond 3. You can use Titan Bond 2, I believe. It's still water resistant or waterproof somewhat. And for materials here, you're going to need some longer nails and some shorter nails, and we'll talk a little bit about that as we get assembling. And then finally, you're going to need your bars. This is like the top bar. This is going to be the bottom bar. And then you're going to have two side pieces. Okay, so when you order these online, the top bar pieces are going to come in, I guess, standard or wedged. I believe that's what they're called. This is what a wedged will look like. So it has a crack in one side. If you flip it over, it's solid. So what we're going to end up doing is we're going to end up splitting off this little wedge just by hand. And then we're going to take these two side pieces and put them on the sides. These different lengths will determine how big your frame is. So these are lengths for mediums. If you had shallows, they would be shorter. If you had deeps, they would be longer. And so to start off by building these, you just take the wedge piece and you snap it off like that. And then you'll have this extra piece of wood. And as you can see here, it's going to be two different heights now because the broken side comes here, the wedge. You snap it off, and then we're just going to turn it and we're going to glue it. So take your wood glue here. I like just to put it on the bigger piece here of the frame. And then just put it all the way down the side. Oops. If you get a little bit on other things like me, just wipe it off or wipe it into the groove here. But in general, you're going to want the glue on this piece that's sticking up. So you want the glue here on the ridge. So that when you take your second piece and you end up gluing it here, it's going to glue to the back of it. A lot of times it won't slide down into the groove in the middle, so you want to make sure it glues well to the back. So again, I'm just going to use my finger here and just kind of spread the glue a little bit. If you need a little bit more, go ahead and put a little bit more on. I'll turn that around so you can see it. There'll be a little ridge on the wood here. I just put the ridge facing out, away from the frame, so it doesn't mess with it. But if you turn it like this, you can just glue on this piece of wood here and just press it into place. And one of the key important things I've made a mistake on is make sure that the little piece of wood, the wedge here that you're going to be gluing on, make sure that's level with the end. If not, if it gets slid one way too much or the other, your end pieces won't fit, and so you have to take a little wood saw and just saw it off. But this doesn't stay in place very well, so I use these binder clips and I put it on the edge of the bar here to hold it in place. It's going to be pressing into the bar, so I'll grab a second one and press it into the bar. So you can see here the piece of wood itself. I take this binder clip and it clips onto the hard piece of wood, and then it's pressing into the little tab to hold it on here. If it's not perfectly straight, it doesn't really matter, to be honest with you. But again, it's going to look like this. It'll hold it into place, and we have this little bar. And then once they're completed, they'll look like this. Again, I let the glue set for 24 hours. And you'll end up with a top bar that ends up having a little bit of wood on the top. Now you could put wax on here if you wanted or whatnot. I don't do anything when I put them in my hives. My bees will just build straight off of this straight down. And so the next step now is we're going to take the side pieces, and you're going to want to take the fatter end, and that's going to be down on the bar with the skinnier end up. And all I do for that is take, again, the wood glue, put a little bit of wood glue on the side of the top bar here. Put a little bit on the surface where it's going to connect to, and again, a little bit more on the side. And then I just flip it around. Put a little glue here, put a little glue. And then I take these side bars, and again, the fatter piece going down onto the bar. Press that in place. Take your other bar. Press that in place. And then finally, take your bottom bar. These can come in, I believe, slotted in solids. The ones I end up having a slot in the bottom. Again, you could use the slot if you're going to put a piece of wax or a piece of foundation, plastic foundation in. I don't use them, but I just like having it the bottom solid, just so that it's a little more sturdy. And again, I take the wood glue and I put it on the three sides of this where it's going to connect to the side of the frame. So turn it around, put a little glue here on these two pieces, and then here. And then slide this in place on top. And then wipe away any extra glue on top of here and on top of here. So now we're going to take our longer nails here, and I'm going to put it through, see if I can show you. We're going to put it through the wood, but it's going to go right through the middle, and it will end up nailing into the side. So it will go through this bottom piece, and it will nail the bottom piece to the side piece. We've already glued it. You don't need to wait for the glue to set for this part. Just put the nail on and nail it all together at this point. If you do this fairly good, you'll see that the nail will go through the slot. If it's off to one side or the other, it doesn't really matter. It just needs to hold the bottom piece on to the sides. And then we'll turn it around and do the second side. If your nail busts out the side, which I've had happen, just pull it out, scoot it over, and try to get it to go evenly into the sides. And then finally, we're going to flip the frame over here. And we're going to pull out these little tiny nails, which I don't know if you can see here. Try to show you. So these are the tiny nails. These were the large nails that we were using for the bottom on the sides. We're going to take the tiny nails now, which you can typically buy on these beekeeping websites as well. And we're going to put one on each side of the frame to hold it in. So I'm going to push this in with my hand as best I can. It's hard to hold these because they're tiny nails, and we're going to nail this in. And mine hardly ever go in perfectly straight, and that's okay. We're going to flip it over, put a small nail in on this side. And then finally, we're going to turn the frame to the other side, and we're going to nail in a nail in each one of these. And flip the frame over and put the final nail in. And then at this point now your frame is ready to go. You could throw it in the hive as is without letting it dry. Again, I try to let these dry another 24 hours, but in general the process is pretty simple. You'll end up gluing together the top with the wedge piece, let it dry for 24 hours. You'll come back a day later and you'll end up tacking on the side pieces and the bottom, again using some wood glue, using a few nails, and you're ready to go. So anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you found it helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And as always, until next time.